everybody. Thank you for coming out this evening and staying home with me. Oopsie, wrong way. I am getting set up, so apologize, running a couple minutes late. I had to go fill my glass of wine up, so I hope all of y'all have a nice little glass of something for this evening. How is everybody doing? If you have your photo reference, we are doing stormy skies tonight, which is a little bit fitting because it rained here for the first time in like 2 weeks. So I don't know if y'all have ever been to St. Petersburg, Florida, but it's I didn't realize this, but before we moved here, but its nickname is the Sunshine City. And really, like, we don't get rain. Yeah, Kelly, sorry about that. Nope, I do change clothes. We might be in quarantine, but I do try to change clothes. We've set a very low bar for ourselves. We make sure that we get a shower every day and that we do change clothes. But it's the little things, right, guys? All right, so as I am letting this the toned ground dry, so this is just gonna dry for a couple minutes. So this is just burnt sienna, watered down, and we've talked about this before if you've joined us. This helps us see, this creates a nice mid-tone, and so we can then see darks and lights a lot better. And tonight we are going to be doing, if you have purchased one of the class packs, we are going to be doing a nice dramatic stormy sky. And along with that, I have, this is a rough draft, so it's not fully done, but this is the color palette that we're going to be using. So we have some really pretty blues, some greenish colors, and these are just some really beautiful different blues that we're going to work with tonight. And we're gonna do just, I love being on the coast, and I love watching fronts roll in. And I think this is, this reference photo that we're using is just a great example of one of those big dramatic fronts right as it rolls in. I don't know about y'all, but like I've been out on a boat before, and we've basically had to outrun a front like that before. And you try to get in before, you try to get back to the dock before the front, because everything starts rocking and rolling, and you don't want to be out on that water when this decides to come through. So this week we've actually been using a lot more of the Prussian blue than we have in any of the weeks before. Up until this point, just haven't really used much Prussian blue. And Prussian blue is similar to a phthalo blue. A lighter version that you can use is cerulean. A greener version that you can use is a design cyan, or I believe Golden makes a primary blue. Oh, yes, on the color palette I sent out, an arrow means the color next to it and then plus whatever. So, for example, on this one, I mix this color and then I add white, if that makes sense. So this was yellow, Prussian blue, and white. And I got this color, which is like this really, really beautiful bluish green. And then I add even more white so you can kind of see. And when I go through and do the handouts, I erase all of my chicken scratch and type it in so that it's easier for y'all to read and understand what I'm doing. Because I come through and I make all these color swatches, and it's really, I'm doing it as I go, and so my handwriting is sometimes like I make weird notes and stuff like that, and it's I clean it up so that you guys can hopefully understand what's going on a little bit better. So if you have any questions, absolutely feel free to ask. I'm glad, sorry Kelly about that. But yeah, so we're gonna be using a lot of Prussian blue today. And speaking of which, before we get started, I should squeeze some more out on my palette. I'm running a little bit low. All right, so my darkest blue right now is going to be Prussian blue, Van Dyke brown, and just a little hint of yellow. And we are going to use that in the deepest shadows. And so it's really going to be here in the deepest shadows of the waves and the water. We're not going to really use it too much in the foreground. We might use a couple hits of it, but we're going to keep it pretty transparent. And I've talked about this before. Keeping your darks transparent might seem a little counterintuitive initially, but it helps from keeping things getting too dark. Something that you don't realize, like our mind says something is black, but it never actually is truly black. Like black is not a natural color. Like black on a tree, if you see a tree and it's an extreme shadow, it's either like if it's the trunk, if it's the dark side of a trunk, it's a very dark brown, which dark brown is essentially, sometimes it's hard for me to talk and paint at the same time. This is one of those times. Brown is essentially a very, very dark orange. So it's an extreme version of an orange. If you were to if you were to just make it black, you take all the color out and you lose a whole bunch of what makes it dynamic. And your eye can perceive, believe it or not, even though you think it looks black, your eye can tell the difference between a dead black and like a very, very dark blue. Think about when you see navy blue next to black. Your eye can tell the difference, and it can tell that the navy blue has some color to it. So if you want to make, if you really want to make your painting dynamic, keep those colors in your darks. Because the second you take those colors out, mix your own black, mix your own really dark colors. It will just change your painting. All right, so now I'm doing yellow, Prussian blue, and just I don't even know that I don't have any white in here. Maybe just a tiny bit of white. Then I'm adding some of that other Prussian blue that I had. And right now I'm coming through and I'm doing the big shadows. Don't worry about, there's a lot of foam. There's a lot of white. Don't worry about that. We will come through and add a lot of white, but that'll be the last thing that we do. Because remember, we go dark to light and neutral to bright. So I'm just laying down the basic colors that are under the foam. And that is, like, believe it or not, this right here, I'm gonna go in and add some more of the Prussian blue. But this is truly, most of our mid and dark tones in the water. And that's kind of it, believe it or not. Like you'll come through and this, what you'll find out today is what we're painting today is actually pretty simple. And it's especially simple if you think about it in value, which is lights and darks. And there's not, and the important thing is when you're first starting out, like I know when I was first starting out, I would see all this foam and I'd get confused. And so I would want to come in and do every little color in between the foam and then try and get the foam in there almost separately. And we're not going to do that. We're going to treat the foam like it's foam. So we're going to get everything behind the foam done, and then we're going to come in just like the foam is in real life. We're going to put the foam in on top of everything, and it'll make life so much easier. And these are also the darkest darks. And so as this dries, we're going to come in, and there are a lot of actually lighter tones, and we'll come in and lighten up the water as we continue with the painting. And that will also make it a lot easier going forward. Ooh, that was way more brown than I wanted. All right. You mess up mixing a color, don't worry about it. You don't have to, don't worry about your paint. Like your paint is to be used. If you accidentally mix a little bit of the wrong color, don't beat yourself up. Don't worry about saving it. Just start over, especially if you're just beginning. Like, you want to get comfortable with using paint. And the more comfortable you are with using paint, eventually the less you'll, I know initially I was like, oh, I'm just wasting paint. And so I wouldn't use enough paint. And so then I mixed the wrong colors of paint, and then I would waste more paint. It's a pretty vicious circle. But if you invest in good paint, and weirdly enough, as soon as you're not afraid of using it, you learn, and you learn quickly, and you learn how to use it and maneuver it, and then you're not, all of a sudden you look up and you realize you're not wasting it. So this is interesting because these clouds are basically just this dark, it's this dark, 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 dark front. And it's kind of a just wall of clouds. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask. And I'm deliberately letting some of this burnt sienna break through because I feel like it adds a little bit of energy to these really ominous, foreboding, moody clouds. And it kind of adds makes them a little less scary if you can see some of that orange popping through it. It lightens them up a little. Just look at that block of clouds. It's so dramatic. So lovely. Gosh, makes me want to head for the dock. I don't know about y'all. All right, so the clouds are blocked in, and honestly, I would probably, as we move on, I'll probably just leave them. We'll see how they look when compared with the sky. But wow, I like them. I like how they turned out. They're in the photo, these are really just kind of a dark block, and with our brush strokes, I've come in and broken it up a little and created a little bit more movement, which is something that you can do as an artist. You can use your viewpoint and accent. You know, one of the beautiful things about being an artist is you get to write the story. All right, so I'm going to come in, and the sky is this wonderful, very interesting gray color. So I'm coming in and I'm adding some of this really interesting gray, and I think I got this. Oh, this was Prussian blue and a little bit of Van Dyke brown and a lot of white and a hint of yellow. So then I'm gonna come in, and this is a very interesting thing about the sky, is that there's all these different layers of clouds, and so you have this yellow sky sort of poking out, and it's not at the horizon. It's sort of coming out from underneath these, from behind this stormy cloud. It's almost like, it feels like a sunrise or sunset in reverse. It's a very interesting light effect. So I just kind of what I did is I put some of that golden color, the very light yellow color in, so that it'll be peeking out. Then I'm gonna come back with that gray over top. And this is how, as you start, learning, you figure out sometimes it's easier to bring one thing in, or you just figure out what works for you in what comes before something else. Like what part, because typically if you think about it, this yellow should go last. But because it's behind the clouds, it's kind of a little bit easier to overlay some of these clouds on top visually. And so you just learn what works best for you, and you adapt. And oh yeah, so these I pre-mix a whole bunch of my palette. I do all these colors, and I do about 3 or 4. It's been a bit since I laid this out, so it's getting a little messy, but I do pre-lay out some of the values so that they're already mixed. So then I don't always start from like a dark Prussian blue. I already have a little bit of the lighter bit mixed, so I don't have to spend a bunch of time mixing every single time I come to my palette. So you see how I kind of overlaid and brought in the clouds over top of this yellow, so that the yellow is peeking from behind It helps, the yellow wants to come forward, and the way I did it helped make the reader, make your eye understand that it's actually coming from behind this thing. And your eye's still gonna be a little confused, but that's kind of one of the cool things about the sky, is that it doesn't 100% visually make sense. It's a very interesting sky effect. I hope everyone that joined us enjoyed meeting Kim Smith yesterday. Her work is just fabulous. I was so sad her Instagram live from this morning didn't save, and I was homeschooling, so I didn't get a chance to watch it. All right, so I'm more or less mostly done with the sky. So now I'm gonna come in, I've done all the mid and dark tones in these waves, and I'm gonna start pulling the painting later. So I'm gonna start bringing in all the foam. I'm gonna bring in, there are a whole bunch of like mid to lighter tones, and I'm gonna bring those in now. Now that I've seen how dark these darks go, I have my lightest lights and I have my darkest darks, and now I'm gonna use the other colors and kind of bring this all up. Make it a little bit lighter. Okay. I'm gonna add in the later colors, I'm gonna add a little bit of like teal to just kind of lighten it a bit and green it up. And I'm gonna come in here. And one of the easy things to do if you're working on waves and working on water, I would recommend, like, it really helps if you are, if your brush follows the rhythm of the wave. So that will really help create movement. And you don't need to, similar to grass, you don't need every single wave to be accentuated, but if you have a general brushwork that follows, like, that was a terrible example, but like if it follows the water, it gives that general movement. And as you go, if you're generally kind of following the wave, it gives the overall feeling as the water moves, if that makes sense. And once again, like, don't be concerned with capturing every single detail. It is so easy to get lost in the details and totally miss the forest through the trees, especially with things like waves or grass. Think about the overall colors. Like, think of the big color and get the big colors in, and then worry about the details as you go and as you work the painting. Okay, so now I'm gonna bring in some of the lighter kind of green tones. And the green tones are really beautifully done with a Prussian blue and a touch of yellow and just a little bit of white. I believe this was a stock photo I got from somewhere. I'm not sure where this ocean is, but it looks almost like, I don't know if any of y'all have ever been down to the Southern Ocean, which when I was growing up, there were only 4 oceans, but apparently there's now a Southern Ocean, which is below Australia. And that ocean is Matisse has a color. It's a paint company, and they're an Australian paint company, and they have a color that they've named Southern Ocean Blue. And it is just, the ocean truly is like this crazy sapphire blue I've never seen anywhere else. It's really spectacular. All right, so like this is kind of touches of foam. It's not quite the foam, it's like the sea before the foam. But do you see how I've moved a little bit with the waves? And it just gives you that general overall impression of what the wave feels like if you move with the wave. You don't have to be, and I'm pushing some of the colors a little bit. I'm adding a little bit of teal. I'm adding this is where all of a sudden you can start to improvise and push a little bit and figure out if you go too far, and you can start to experiment. And all of this I'm doing with a bigger brush. All right. So before I overwork it, I'm going to stop with the colors, and I'm going to get some of the foam going, because there's just this wonderful white foam. And once again with the foam, I'm generally following. I've added a little bit of ultramarine because a lot of this foam is in shadow, so it's not white. I'll come back with like a white foam, and I'm defining the edge of the wave. I'm kind of trying, this wave's a little bit weird in its shape. But this is where, you kind of, you follow the wave. And waves have very, oh, how did yellow get in there? Waves have very fluid movement. So if you kind of go with the movement, and not to be too surfer about it, but if you feel the rhythm of the motion as you're painting and work with it and don't fight it, you will get the most natural movements of your brush. You'll have these happy little waves. So if you, like I said, you just kind of, you go with it. Go with the wave. You don't fight it. And this, I have painted so much bad foam and so many bad waves. This definitely takes practice, but once you kind of get the general idea of it, it can be a lot of fun. I mean, there are entire people that they paint waves. And they study the ocean, and it's an entire genre all of itself. And I will go and sit and stare at the ocean for hours, but I find I have to take pictures, or oftentimes I have a difficult time even, taking my own pictures, just because they're moving so quickly and I'm not good enough at the photography for that. So I will, I generally counsel against buying stock photography, but for certain subjects, I will do that. And like waves and ocean are one that I'll like go to iStock Photo or whatever, and I'll buy some of the stock photos, and I'll recrop them and frame them to what I want, but they make really good practice. Oh no, I'll need to check that out. What is it? Irina Cumberland's work. Yeah, there are just there are so many amazing water painters. It's a specialty all in itself. Like I truly believe that you can, if you learn to paint, you learn to paint anything. But there are definitely people that specialize and like capture, like there are portrait artists that learn how to capture the essence of a person. I think there are people that learn and, eventually capture the essence of the ocean just beautifully. And for the rest of us, we can learn to paint anything, and we can generalize and learn to paint all the things, which is kind of what I like to do. I like to paint a lot of different things. All right, so now I'm gonna come in and let's see how this goes. This is for the that was too heavy of a hand. Good job, Shelby. All right, so you see this mark right here? It's a little bit covered up by the comments. I came in and it was just too heavy of a mark, and so I got out. This was me working with a bigger brush, and it was just too heavy, too boorish. It did not. So I'm going to use a daintier brush and be a little bit. And this is also, I'm bringing in some yellow, which is great because then it pulls some of the yellow from the sky. And I'm all about, besides the water needs to reflect the sky, just in your painting, you need to have kind of all the colors pulled through, or else your painting can kind of, especially something like this, it can look a little like you painted two separate paintings if you're not careful. So it really helps unify the painting if you have similar colors throughout, which these are all blues, and this is me just kind of coming through and doing some foam. And then I'm also going to come through I did notice right as I'm talking about, you know, having everything be continuous and the same, I really don't have some of these other colors up in the clouds. And so I'm gonna just very subtly, I'm bringing some ultramarine accents in. Just very, very small, not in the whole thing, but this will pick up some of the colors. I'm gonna bring a little bit of teal in as well, and it will help unify the painting just a little bit. It's just little tiny accents. It'll all sink in and you won't even really, you won't be like, oh, there's that brush stroke, but it will just give a little hint of the colors that helps pull the painting together. So well, let's see. I don't know. What do y'all think? Think I'm done? Yeah, we were just chatting and talking and enjoying each other, and then the painting more or less kind of finished itself. So yeah, if you guys are painting waves, I would really suggest, you know, for lack of a better term, go with the flow. Like, follow the flow of the water, let your brush kind of skip over the direction of the waves, and don't overthink it. Put in your big colors, your big, you know, I put in these big dark colors, and then I came over it a little bit, and then I came over it again, and just follow the rhythm of the waves. And even here, like, I didn't do every little white cap in the back. Like, don't worry about every single wave. You just need some suggestion of waves, and then your eye will fill in the rest. So don't overwork it, follow the flow, and you guys will get there. Thank you again for joining me and for staying home with me tonight. I look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow night. We're gonna do, tomorrow night we're gonna do waves again. The theme this week was water, but the thing we're gonna be doing tomorrow that I'm super excited about is we're gonna be really focusing on capturing the glow that happens when the sun shines through waves. I just love talking about that glow. It's kind of hard to do. It's a little bit of a trick. And so I'm really looking forward to doing that with y'all. So see you guys tomorrow night, same time, 8:30 p.m. And thank you all for joining me. Y'all have a great night. Bye.